Welcome guys. Once again, every other Wednesday we kind of do this live chat for those of guys who are new and probably watching the replay and you're wondering exactly how do you get yourself in these live streams. Just go ahead and click subscribe and click on that bell down below. That way I get notified every time I go live, and that way I don't have to hear myself echoing in my head. That's one way you make sure that, hey, you can keep up to speed on whenever we go live, what we're talking about. This week, kind of winter hiking considerations as well as overall gear. And yep, I know it's been called the greatest show on earth. Not by me, but maybe by someone very close to me. So hopefully you guys in the chat, it seems like 33 of you already here and having a lot of fun. Big question I asked is where you guys are going this weekend. If any place is cool, I don't have any big plans this weekend. The plan is to stay home and kind of watch the kids. I think it should be a little warmer. That'd be interesting to see, if that holds true or not. But once again, I tell you how to make sure you watch the stream on the replay. And I think I've mentioned before the Mountain House code for 30% off. You guys know I'm an ambassador, but I always try to help you guys save some money on if you're ordering in bulk. It's the best way to do it. But 30% off, that code is in the description if you guys want it or not. So just let me know. I'm letting you guys know right now, the turkey dinner casserole is probably a second close favorite behind the beef stroganoff, and so I think you should definitely try it out. If you get to see it in store somewhere, make sure you pick it up. Try it at least once. So, winter hiking considerations. Let's see, people in the chat are again, oh, thank you very much. I do love my mustache. It's probably one of my most defining features or qualities. Yeah, the code's in the description. I think right now they actually have a deal going on desserts, and they also have a deal going on free shipping, I think, if you buy like $99 worth of stuff. So something to keep in mind. So winter hiking considerations. One of the things I was thinking about as I was kind of going through questions from this past couple weeks or so is sweating in the winter time. And you guys all know how kind of not only distracting and kind of gross it is, but you have to be really careful when you're sweating in the wintertime that you don't get chilled really fast. And that's one of the things that I think that if we're talking about kind of what surprised me the most is how quickly, even in the winter hiking, you end up sweating. And I guess I should have known this because I sometimes will run in the wintertime. And I know they usually will say, and I mentioned it in my video, when you're running, dress like you're going to be 20 degrees warmer. And I guess I didn't think about it in terms of hiking, but it probably pretty much applies about the same. Just I remember being so hot just with so few layers on. And actually, I think for the trip on the most recent Laurel Highlands trip, I actually probably brought too many layers. I feel like I could have done. I had the base layer, I had just the outdoor shirt on, then I had the fleece that you're kind of seeing now, as well as a winter kind of overshell. And I probably could have not done with the blue kind of hiking shirt. I didn't really need that at all. Isaac George is kind of asking questions. Yeah, and as before, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I'll kind of answer as we come into as they come up. But do you miss the hood of your sleeping bag when you're using your quilt? No, I do not. In terms of what I use when I use my quilt, I use a balaclava. Make sure I use a warm hat, and I don't find like the hood makes much of a difference to me at all, except for giving you that kind of closed sleeping bag feeling like you're in a cocoon. You won't have that in the quilt. And I know some people who actually put their head under the quilt. I wouldn't recommend that just because you usually will have a lot of moisture going into your quilt when you're down. But I haven't had an issue missing kind of that hood. Someone is saying in that Laurel Highlands video, I kind of look like a giant hiking with those guys. I felt like a giant sometimes. Those of you guys who have met me in person know that I'm only about 6'1", but compared to those guys I was hiking with, I was kind of felt like I was towering over. I think there was one point in the video in Meerkat hiking video. He's in the chat, so go ahead and check out his Laurel Highlands video. I remember feeling like he was taking a shot, I think toward the end, and we're all kind of getting in frame, and I kind of had to hunch down as close as I possibly could to try to get in frame. Especially selfies was actually really difficult. So Mike Goes Outdoors asks, have you been ever charged by a bear or any type of animal? Do you carry bear spray? Depends where we're going. Usually one in our group will carry bear spray. So if you're thinking about like when we were out in Four Pass Loop, no, actually, I take that back. In Four Pass Loop, at least for the first night, Subaru Josh had bear spray. So one of us in the group usually will bring bear spray of some kind. Ever been charged? No. I think animals have thought about charging. So if you watch the Four Pass Loop video, you'll realize that there was a section where I think we're going up, not Buckskin Pass, Trail Rider Pass, and you can see a kind of a young moose in the distance, and it was one of those kind of moments where there's about a couple hundred feet away from us, and I remember saying to myself, don't charge, and he kind of looked at my way, and Karate Josh actually had him kind of bluff charge and kind of stamp his foot, but I've never had that, especially with the bear. We actually, believe it or not, Mike, the only time we've seen a bear is on our way out, heading out of the national park or wherever we're going. Usually on the trail, I actually have never seen a bear. We've heard like loud animals moving in the distance or crashing through the underbrush, and have assumed that's bear, that we kind of startled, but actually have never actually seen one on the trail. Isaac's talking about, considering switching to a quilt. I don't blame you. I don't think I am actually honestly going to carry a sleeping bag again. Nothing against, there are good sleeping bags out there. I just don't think it's worth the weight. The zipper, the hood, the need for just all those different, like the draft collar tends to be a little thicker on sleeping bags. I just have not had an issue with it at all. I don't think I'll ever go back to a sleeping bag. Rick Arcana is talking about, I had a family set up their tent in the middle of our campsite while we were eating away from camp, and they were surprised, a bear came in camp. No, we take really good precautions. I know you guys all know this, but we try to eat away from camp whenever we can, or at least in a designated eating area that's away from where we're sleeping. And of course in the Smokies it becomes a little easier because they actually have cables for hanging your packs up on, and so that's the nice thing about I like hiking in the Smokies and having those bear cables. It's really nice just putting your entire pack up there. Everything smellable goes up there, and it's not an issue at all. John is talking about, how do you prevent condensation on your quilt or bag from breathing? The big thing I use, John, is I've noticed balaclava really helps. I know some people in their hammock will use like a frost bib, and I've considered using, for example, a pack towel or something to kind of catch the frost from my breath. I haven't had that much frost that's an issue through a balaclava. So balaclava, those of you guys who don't know, is just basically like a hat combined with a kind of face mask. It looks kind of like a ski mask, and so that actually has caught all my breath, moisture. It also helps me when I'm in the hammock, making sure I don't wake up with a sore throat, because sometimes I'll have that issue where I wake up and my throat is really swollen, and the air has been so cold, and I hate that. I hate that feeling. And so just going to bed with a balaclava has actually helped get rid of that issue entirely. It kind of warms the air, and it catches pretty much all that moisture. Another thing I use is, one of my quilts has actually a 20D kind of weather resistance lighting equipment. outer layer, and so that's kind of the backup to the backup. And so nothing is coming through my balaclava right now, but it's there if it ever were to get wet or moist. Hopefully that helps, John. Chris is asking a great question that's been asked a couple times, but I don't mind answering again. Do I ever plan on doing one of the big 3 trail through hikes? I would love to. The issue comes down to family and leaving my job. And right now, I don't see that being in the cards. Maybe someday. I always joke about maybe, you're 45 of you watching right now. Maybe one of you is a corporate sponsor or marketing sponsor, and you want to sponsor me on a through hike. Hey, I'm more than welcome to listen to comments or business inquiries like that one. But right now, it's just not in the cards. I've already talked to my wife about it. If something were to way down the road ever happen with YouTube, or ever happen where I had something lucrative take off, then maybe, yeah, we've talked about it as like a pie in the sky idea that maybe we would, she'd be comfortable with me kind of hiking that long as she kind of has her parents to help her with the kids, because I do have 3 kids. Trail Aesthetics asking about how I get the chat board to appear in your screen. Yeah, briefly, I use OBS, Open Broadcast Software, and you get it set up these different scenes. And one of the scenes, so you've seen 2 scenes so far if you've been watching. First of all, you see the scene where the music is playing and the scrolling pictures. That's one scene, and the second scene is where you're live, and you also have the chat window, a pop-out window, and so that's how I get it to appear. Restless Outdoors is giving that tip. Order one size longer. I'm 6 foot, ordered extra long, covers your head perfectly. Yeah, I actually really like that. That's a good point, Adam. When you're talking about quilts, having that extra length is really nice. And so on super cold nights where you want to warm it like that, I actually do pull up the quilt kind of all the way briefly and then put it back down. Make sure I kind of get warm fast. And yeah, so once you go to quilts though, it's really hard to go back. Isaac's asking about trail runners while hiking in the winter. No, I do not use trail runners while hiking in the winter, but 2 of those guys who were on the Laurel Highlands hiking trail video did wear trail runners. What they did is they also wore waterproof kind of sealskin socks, and so that's something that has worked really well for them. Both Gary and Alex, or Meerkat, in the video kind of wore those, and I was actually surprised at how well it worked for them. Their socks actually dried really fast when we kind of warmed up by the fire. They had no problems or issues with doing that in winter hiking. That really surprised me. I wore boots. I wore the Salomon X Ultras, which actually surprised me with how well they did. If you're looking for a lightweight boot that comes pretty close to mimicking a trail runner, I recommend the Salomon X Ultras. I had no foot soreness, no issues at all, and I also felt like I had not very much weight on my feet. So it was nice to have that option, and I don't think I'm going to go with something different for winter. Quilts, yep, Enlightened Equipment's a good company to have quilts from. Z-Packs also makes quilts. Hammock Gear, UGQ, there are a bunch of things out there. Stephen Waits is asking, are you planning on doing any Mountain West trips this year? Yes, I definitely am. The plan right now, tentatively, is Utah. So that's the big plan, to head there sometime in the summer. We're just looking at plane tickets, kind of monitoring prices using kind of Google Flights, and they send me alerts whenever ticket prices drop for flights that I'm watching. And so, yeah, hopefully I'll have those tickets purchased in March, depending if I want to see one more drop in prices. It's still fairly pricey right now, so hopefully we have a drop there. Ozark Hiker 23 is asking, have you or anybody you know ever had to deal with plantar fasciitis? Fasciitis. So yes, actually, I don't know if he's ever had it diagnosed, but Super Josh has issues with his feet, and so I think it's plantar fasciitis. I'm not a medical doctor or physician by any means, but that's what it seems like when he complains about it. And I think it's kind of as a result of not transitioning really well to the Ultra Lone Peaks. And that's something that people kind of, when they switch to the Ultra, sometimes they don't realize is because they're a zero drop shoe. There should be a kind of a transition period. If you look at Ultra's website, they actually talk about that. And some shoes require less of a transition period, because if you think about like let's say the Salomon trail runners I use, the Speedcross 3s, they kind of have a higher heel, which are most of our shoes are. We're kind of used to that, and so we have to be careful when, if you go to a zero drop shoe, you're kind of putting strain on muscles and tendons that you're not used to working out, and so you have to make sure you have an adjustment period. Unfortunately, Super Josh did not, so he has to kind of take it slow sometimes, not push himself in some areas. A lot of people actually roll out some of their muscles, like their Achilles especially, or kind of that roll out the muscles on their lower legs in general. If you want to talk to someone who kind of has a lot of, not a lot, but a fair amount of foot issues and working on it, Jason from Outdoor Adventures is a perfect person to kind of talk about. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Yes, orthotics as well. That's what Super Josh uses. Is he uses, I believe, cork-based orthotics. I've actually used the shoe inserts, which are the weave insoles, and those have really worked well for me. I know on some day hiking shoes, I have the Merrell Moab ventilators, and when I've used the weave inserts in them, I don't have any foot pain. I used to have more foot pain, foot soreness without them. Any desire to go solo? Actually, no. I feel like I would go solo if I had no one to go with me. So far, I've been really fortunate, really blessed that I've always had someone come with. I've never had an issue with finding kind of a hiking partner. There've been a couple times where I've come close, but usually someone ends up saying, "Hey, I want to go. That sounds really cool," and so it's been really nice. No real desire to. If something didn't work out where someone couldn't go, I would go myself. I came close to, for example, I know we talked about Laurel Highlands for a while. There was a time there where we were kind of going back and forth, wondering if it was worthwhile, if there wasn't going to be enough snow. So I actually considered just going to the Smokies by myself. If we couldn't work out whatever it was, that was kind of an option in my head. Jay's talking about, yep. If you order that quilt from Enlightened Equipment, make sure to get that water-resistant fabric around the top and the bottom. Those are the guys who are ground dwellers. It helps if you touch the side of your tent with your sleeping bag or whatever condensation. It really works well. I like my 20D outer quilt. Sleeves is talking about through hiking the AT, and yeah, make sure you follow Sleeves right here in the chat. He's one of the people who I'm going to be watching as they kind of through hike the AT. He's starting soon, I believe, in a month or so. You let me know if I'm wrong. But also the person who kind of created the music you listened to in the very beginning, Evan's backpacking videos, is also through hiking the AT, and Gary, who you saw in the Laurel Highlands Trail video, is also through hiking the AT. So lots of people that we know in this backpacking community who are through hiking this year, so it should be awesome to watch. My old rule was boots in the winter for snow or rain. I now use trail runners year round. For snow and rain, I wear a pair of neoprene socks. Chris is asking, which trail would I hike? I probably, in terms of the three you mentioned, so the CDT, which is, so CDT, PCT, and AT, I probably would do the AT first, is the one I would want to do. Just because it's on the East Coast, it's closer by, I probably would do that one first if I could. Rainy weekend here in Pittsburgh. Any recommendations for the local area like Laurel Highlands, but a little shorter? Sod, sir, I'm not from Pennsylvania, but I know those guys typically will check out Raccoon Creek Park. I know Oil Creek Park for sure, but those are the two I would check out. What brand of dry sacks do I use in what sizes? This is from Joshua Jenis. Thanks for the question. What I tend to use is I use an Outdoor Products, which is a Walmart brand stuff sack for my food, and that usually works really well. I use the yellow size. It comes like in a pack of 3, and so if you want to spend not very much money, that's the way to go. In terms of my other stuff, so like my quilt, my clothes, I usually use Z-Packs dry bags. So I use the size large. That usually will hold my hammock, that will usually hold my 20-degree quilt and some clothes, maybe in a pinch. I also have a large cylinder size dry bag from Z-Packs that I use for my winter quilt, as well as for some electronics and different things. But yeah, Z-Packs bags, just because they're light, and sometimes I I toss stuff in my Z-Packs cart when I'm buying. Sealskin versus bread bag for... Oh, okay, Trevor, I miss your... Yep, the new 7D fabric from Enlightened Equipment came out today. Oh, bummer. But 7D sounds like it's pretty pretty thin. I guess I'd like to try it, see what it's like first before I actually make the purchase and buy it. Sealskin versus bread bag. Yep, bread bags are definitely a cheap option. Hey, Bob. It's gonna be... Whoa. Lots of questions. The chat's hopping place to be. Let's see. Hot in Utah in the summer. I hope so. How do you fly with your kit? Isaac George is asking a question about. So when I head out west, what I did. So I have a kind of a duffel bag from REI. I think it's the REI Transporter, something like that. I have to check it out, but it's kind of red color. It's a long duffel bag pretty much. And I checked it out when I got it, made sure my pack fully loaded can fit in there. I also fit extras in there, extra clothes, extra shoes, as well as my trekking poles in there. Zip it up and fly with it. And of course, I make sure I take the arc out of my pack. Yep, I love my Solomon shoes a lot. I know that some people don't like them because they're a little narrower. Even though I have wide feet, once I get kind of sized up an extra half a size, I haven't had an issue with it at all. This has been a dry winter in Utah. Might cause issues finding water. I got to keep that in mind. When can we expect... Jay and Jessica Hill is asking about a new trowel review. Hey, Nick. Not quite yet. We just did one. But I actually reached out to Dutch because I saw that he had a trowel that I didn't know about. Someone commented and said, hey, their favorite is Dutch Wear Gear's trowel. And so I realized, hey, I can't have a hole in my trowel playlist. So I made sure I asked him for it. It might be a little while before I do one, though. I don't like to do too many of them in a row. Hey, Fred. Have I considered an NCT section hike? Kevlar is asking this question. Yes, I have. There are lots of different section hikes that I want to do. The awesome thing about living in the United States is we have so many trails available to us, which is just awesome that we have. I don't know. I like where I live in Ohio because it provides me the option to, I can head west fairly quickly. I can head east all the way to New Hampshire in a day. I can hit Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I can also head south to Red River Gorge. I can head south to the Smokies. And it's just awesome that I have all these options for places I can go. I can head north to Michigan. And so that's really nice. So I have lots of considerations. Because I'm so centrally located, I have an option to go lots of different places. Superfeet. February 17th is when sleeves is starting. John is asking about that 7D material. I think it's a good idea to offer it. I just kind of want to see how it feels. I feel like sometimes the 10D is fairly thin already. So I'm just curious to see how much thinner the 7D actually feels. Snowy conditions, which under quilt would you recommend? I think all of them are good options. The reason I like the Enlightened Equipment option is just because they have that kind of weather resistant option. I'm not sure about UGQ or Hammock Gear if they have those options for under quilts. And honestly, in snowy conditions, and Yak, I don't know if you know this or not, but I actually use a pad in my hammock. And so one of the reasons is I not only is it still comfortable and I have the option to go to the ground if I need to or want to. So for example, those of you guys who watched the Laurel Highlands trip recognize that it was nice. I could just go sleep in the shelter because I had my pad with me. But that's one of the reasons I think about getting a pad in a hammock. It's just because you don't have to worry about it getting wet. Hey, Chris from That Hiking Guy. Hey, Duke Trail. I have to look into that then. Sodzer Bear. Yep. What weight would you switch from an ultralight pack to a more conventional pack? Yeah, that's a good question. What I do is I look at the manufacturer ratings, and so I'm thinking about Osprey, for example, the Osprey Exo series. If you go on their website, manufacturers usually have a range for what feels comfortable, and so generally, once you start hitting 35 plus, that's where those ultralight packs tend to start feeling a lot less comfortable, and so that's where I would start talking about switching to a more conventional pack. 35 pounds or less, I think ultralight packs are fine. 7D is amazing. I got a 40 of it, and I wouldn't mind seeing it. Softer than 7D. Saves 1 ounce with 70, but costs a good amount, like $9.50 down cost option. Oh, to switch to 70, that is a pricey bump. Fishing with Phil, Washer Tyvek turned out great. Great. Yeah, it's fairly simple. I was going to make a short video about it too, have a little fun with it. Chuck Carter, do you get to go to the bathroom more when sleeping in a hammock or tent? More in a hammock for sure. I just make sure, what I do now is I control kind of my fluids before bedtime, drink just enough to not get dehydrated, but not a whole lot, because you get a lot cooler in a hammock, I think, than in a tent. Or I guess you have the possibility of getting cooler in a hammock than a tent. And so I feel like hammock campers tend to complain about getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom more frequently than tent campers, just because all that air underneath tends to cool you off quite a bit. Yeah, everything still sounds pretty good. Type of backpack to use for winter trips. I still use, Isaac, my winter trip. My first one actually was, I think you saw on the Laurel Highlands Trail. My first one actually using the Arc Haul, and it worked completely fine. No complaints. You can use that year round without an issue. Hey Mike, Osprey Talent, you can take out the frame. Yeah, lots of good questions and lots of good things happening, I think, right now in the cottage vendor community in general. I know, I think Rick and I were talking about how slammed I think all the cottage vendors are, which is good. It means that they have lots of orders and work to do. But the bad part is now we're getting to the point where waiting times for everyone are getting really, really long. And I remember when we were discussing and talking about how, I remember when hammock gear used to be, I don't know, really fast. Like, you're talking like a week, maybe 2 weeks was long for them. And now they're, 5-6 weeks out for quilts. 4 to 5 weeks is what that hacking guy is saying. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting to see. It just means that there's probably more space in the cottage industry to have other people kind of come in. And I always think it's fascinating watching kind of these overall kind of business models for some people. So I think, for example, Dutch and his business sense is incredible in terms of how he's ramping things up. He has lots of different options. He's become the go-to for a lot of people, especially in the hammock community. But in general, make your own gear, guys. Enlightened Equipment is also kind of putting some production in Chinese factories for on-the-shelf products and having custom stuff just in Minnesota. And it's interesting to see how they're going to respond to things kind of becoming more mainstream. I mean, you start to see things like REI having hammocks, and I'm sure you're going to start to see more and more people kind of get into hammocks and start talking about underquilts and start talking about things that previously were just kind of restricted to the few people who were just really, really into backpacking differently. But it's kind of cool to see it going more mainstream, see it more frequently. I've started to see through hikers hammock camp a lot more, it seems like, in the past, or people who are about to through hike and kind of getting into hammock camping at the same time. Brian's talking about having your feet slightly elevated above your kidneys is the reason I get up more at night when sleeping in hammock. No, I haven't heard that one. I've heard just the temper differential, but interesting. Would you ever try DIY gear products? Probably not. Squid Hunter. The reason I don't do a whole lot of DIY is I feel like for every hobby or area you get into, there's all these different like splinter areas. And so let's talk about firearms, for example. That's one of the things I was into and still enjoy occasionally. But there's so many different splinter areas. You can get into reloading, you get into IDPA, you can get into IPSC. You have all these different splinter areas. And I find sometimes by doing that, you can kind of get, at least I did, kind of get overwhelmed with all the different options out there. So I feel like backpacking is kind of the same, where DIY is one of those splinter areas where you could get into, you can make your own quilts, you can do all this stuff. I still will probably try DIY hacks, minimal things, but I probably will never make my own quilt. For example, maybe a simple Costco underquilt, but even then, honestly, I just feel like I have this limited time to do different things, and so I probably won't get too deep into DIY stuff. Have you hiked any of the Buckeye Trail Adventures Found? Honestly, not long enough sections of it. Just, I think technically the sections that are on Hocking Hill area, where you see a sign that's like the NCT Buckeye Trail. Hey, Practical Outdoors, how are you doing? Thank you. And so yeah, in terms of Buckeye Trail, I haven't done a whole lot of it, honestly. Yes, Josh is talking about Dutch products, and the bling is something I use all the time. I think I just had Super Josh order me some wasps because he was putting an order to save on shipping, and plan on using those on the mini fly doors. And I also have like 2 sets of stingers. I love the Dutch bling. That's the thing that I think that makes it so easy to set up. And sometimes when I see people doing knots, and it's great to use knots, and it's nice to, if you need to, you can rely on them, but the Dutch bling just makes things so much quicker. Hey, Super Josh in the house. So let's see. Alone on the History Channel. Yeah, we just placed an order that Chris on Dutch's website maybe 2 or 3 days ago. Isaac's asking, I'm going to use a hammock in Northern California this summer when I hike the PCT. Have you ever used Hammock? No, but I've heard good things about them. What brand hammock do you recommend, and what type of pad is best for hammocks? Interesting questions. So the brand of hammock that I recommend is, I love my Dream hammocks. I actually have 2 Dream hammock Darians because you can drop a lot of weight quickly. It's very minimalist, and you can customize it to be exactly what you want it to be. A lot of other people will kind of chime in, but there are lots of great hammock makers. Dutch is another one. Lots of different models there, but I know the popular one for him is probably the netless hammock, as well as the half-wit is pretty popular. And I think he has an integrated bug net option on one of those. Pad that's best for a hammock, I say the wider the pad, probably the better. And so I use a Neo Air X-Therm in the large version. And I like that because it's super warm. So talking about cooling off, and I want something with a high R value. And so I actually will use the X-Therm almost year round. So yeah, even in the dead of summer, I can sometimes be in my shorts and a t-shirt and with the X-Therm in the hammock without an issue. And sometimes I have to, sometimes I make sure it's not on a night when the temperature is super high because I'm going to sweat it out. Let's see. So honestly, the pad, I would not use a foam pad personally. I think you would give it some comfort if you use a foam pad in a hammock. It's doable, but I just don't think it's the most comfortable. Brand of pads, so I'm partial to the Neo Air or the Thermarest pads, but honestly the Big Agnes has come out with a line of pads now. I think it's the XLA Air, something like that. But if you search on Big Agnes's website, they now have what I consider to be a pretty good competitor to the Neo Air X Lite. And so in terms of weight, and it looks pretty awesome. And it's like, I think 3 plus inches of thickness on that Big Agnes pad. So be sure to check it out. I'm certain REI has it. But if you Google new Big Agnes pad, or it's like Big Agnes something Air, someone comment down below if you know what I'm talking about. Let's see. Hey, Tuba. Adventures Found. What is the primary reason a tenter should try a hammock? I can tell you why I use a hammock, Adventures Found, and the big reason is sleep. I get a ton better sleep. That's the one thing I think that's kept me away from camping and even backpacking for a while, is that I was never comfortable sleeping. I would get maybe a couple hours sleep and I'd be pretty uncomfortable. I wake up and I was like, I'm going to hike, however many miles today. And so a hammock gave me the best option for sleep possible. I slept really, really well in a hammock. And so that's why I think you should try a hammock. If you have trouble sleeping in a tent, switch to a hammock, or at least give it a shot. He's saying, I think, frozen, ready to go, Dream hammock. I think so. He laid in the Dream hammock on Laurel Highlands trip, and he really, really liked it. And so I think he's going to give that a try. Hey, we made the chat long. I should have done that a long time ago. I don't know why. I found a hammock. Yep, with a hammock you don't wake up sore. You have, I don't know, I feel like you could hike longer because of it. Let's see. Tim, I know you're not a ground dweller, but you've been crushing it on DCF lately. Any thoughts on the tarp tent notch? Lithium DCF notch, basically. Yeah, I've been watching them, Tuba, because even though I'm not a ground dweller, I know a lot of people who ground dwell, And so yeah, I've been following their channel a lot, and it's been interesting seeing. I don't know if Tarp Tent maybe hired someone to kind of manage social media, but it seems like they're getting more involved with kind of better Facebook type videos or getting back into YouTube, whereas before they were kind of quiet. There's kind of just a one-man show. I like the look of the Tarp Tent notch, so I understand. So the people who are asking about Tarp Tent kind of made it just a Cuban fiber tent. So they kind of made the notch a popular tent of theirs with Cuban fiber, and they also had the option, I think, to do the Pro Trail tuba, which is kind of what I thought they would go with, which kind of made more sense. It seemed like the Pro Trail is pretty popular, at least the people who I talked to who are ground dwellers. But they probably just went for more space, more room, and so that's why the notch. I think it looks cool. I haven't seen the pricing yet, tuba, on that DCF notch, and so I think it's interesting to see how that will compete with probably the Solplex. I'm not sure if they will really compete or draw market share away from the Duplex, because the Duplex is so roomy, but I think it's interesting to see how it will compete with the Solplex. What got me into backpacking? Actually, he is in the chat. Subaru Josh did. He was one of the people who just started talking about backpacking all the time, and we kind of went hiking, and we kind of got into it around exactly the same time, and so that's why we did that. Rounded pad helps with positioning in a hammock. I think that makes sense. I haven't tried a square pad, I guess. Hammock, no shoulder pain. Big Agnes rocks. Let's see. Don't you think campsites and primitive campsites should have hammock posts to appeal to hammock campers and save the trees from damage? Yes, most definitely. I think eventually we'll see that, but unfortunately it feels like we're going the opposite way in that we're kind of needing like 2-inch wide hammock straps, and so that kind of stuff where we have hammock restrictions kind of bothers me. I saw Subaru Josh in the chat. You see him in the chat. Make sure you go follow his channel. He deserves a better shout out than that, is what he's saying. So make sure you follow him if you kind of want to see a different perspective on our trips. And so on my trips, then you can go check him out. I enjoy watching his videos because I am in them, if that makes sense. And I don't have to watch myself edit for hours on end, those trip videos. I'm stuck in a tent right now because I backpack with my dog, and he wouldn't have it any other way. All right, flash pad. Yeah, and so some people go to the tent because of reasons like that, and I think that's more than reasonable, as well as cutting weight. Honestly, if you want to cut weight down in your overall base weight, I think the best way to do it, let me move aside here. The best way to do it is with a tent. Yeah, you can get light with a hammock, but with a tent, it's just all in one. And seeing those guys rock their Solplex and their Duplex on the last trip, it was pretty amazing just to kind of watch how they, just how light they could get. Climate also makes a pad specific to using in a hammock. That's true. I just don't like, Nick is talking about that. I just don't like the wings, if you will. I understand why they're there, but it seems like, I understand why Climate did it. I'm glad they did it. But it just seems like it's too much. It's like too much weight. Let's see. I love sleeping in a hammock, but hate waiting out a heavy storm in one. Oh, I actually love... No, let me take that back. John is talking about sleeping in a hammock, but having storms. Yeah, storms are a little iffy. Just if there's a lot of wind, that's what usually concerns me. But I kind of like having rain in a hammock or having a heavy storm. Rick is mentioning as well that Big Agnes pad that I was talking about is the AXL Air. So be sure to check that out. If you want a Thermarest competitor or Neo Air XLET competitor, that's the one to do. It's pretty new. First time I did not wake up camping in the woods was when I was using a hammock. Yep. In terms of sleep, the best sleep for me is a hammock. Yep, tuba. I'm not sure about that price of that kind of DCF notch. I'm just kind of waiting to see what they do. It's interesting that they kind of keep teasing the videos, which makes sense from a marketing, I guess, standpoint. But I just wish they would just tell us what the price is going to be. Yeah, sub tuba, the solo hiker. I enjoy his stuff. A good tarp will help with it raining, especially a tarp with doors. Like, I actually like my mini fly just with those small doors, just enough. It's perfect. Devout Tenter. Let's see. You're welcome, Josh. Fred is saying Mr. Donnell I have sleep apnea. I find I sleep way better in the hammock than on the ground, even without a machine. Even though I'm technically on my back, my head is above my chest just a bit, and I don't snore. Interesting. Mike is asking if I got my family into hammocks yet. Probably not. I probably won't get them into hammock camping for a little while. I think we're going to start off nice and slow, something that's pretty easy for them where they just have to get in and out of a tent. They don't have to worry about anything else. I have 5 people in my immediate family, so in terms of when we overall start camping, probably what I'll do is I'll get a 3-person tent, and they're little enough they probably can stand there for a little while, and I have enough hammocks where I'll probably hammock still even while we're tenting. I know, don't tell my wife, but I still want to sleep in my hammock when I'm out with them. And so one thing I'm going to make sure I do is do that, but also bring an extra hammock setup so that they can sleep in that too. We'll see how it goes. We're going to start off pretty small. We're hoping to start this summer. I've convinced my wife to do it because my kids ask me every time I go out, every trip I go on, they ask, can we come with you, Dad? And so this time we're going to start. We're going to start doing it this summer, and we're probably going to start in the Smokies. I'll probably make a video on it. I'm not sure what it's going to look like just because it's going to be more camping with family, but we're also going to kind of backpack, but more base camp backpack, first of all. We did the family thing. Everyone has their own hammock. DIY saved me. Yeah, that can get pricey pretty fast, I think. Adventures found. I am 6'3" tall. Well, you're a tall guy. I thought I was tall, 6'1". Is there a hammock brand and model you recommend? I would recommend custom, and I would recommend looking at 11 foot plus. You're 2 inches taller than me. Maybe 11 foot would work for you. Maybe you have to go custom where you go even longer. But honestly, I would try with an 11 foot first, and then if you need to sell that and try to a 12 foot hammock, I would try that. But Dream Hammock is where I'd start, and I'd recommend. You won't find something off the shelf. It's going to have to be custom, and everything that they do is custom, which is awesome. But that's where I would kind of start. Bob, maybe someday. My wife, those of you guys who don't know her, is not a huge fan of not having a bathroom available. That's the biggest the hang up for her. And so I think once we go someplace maybe with a privy, it's not the most ideal situation, but it's better than she does not like the idea of a hole in the woods. She's not like me where it's just like, remember my last video I was talking about how easy it was? Maybe she'll find it's easy, but we'll see. The kids are kind of like, I'm not sure about that part of things, but they'll do most anything. Sleep apnea. Hey, leave me outdoors. Hey, Matt. It was 40 degrees at night using a padded sleeping bag. Yep. 11 foot at least. Yep. Especially for that height. 11, maybe 12 foot. Going back to some questions that we had, I thought it was interesting to see how the most recent video, it seemed like it resonated with a lot of people, where we're talking about 10 things like I feel like I learned from backpacking. And so what had my future self what would I tell my past self? And a lot of people really resonated with that video. And I think the big things that people kind of came off with and what really mattered to them was that cheap gear is not always bad quality. The miles don't matter really resonated with a lot of people. And then it's okay to do things your way or kind of find your own way, which kind of makes sense. I just thought it was interesting that so many people kind of picked out those 3 things that they thought were kind of important for them, especially the miles. And I think most anyone who's ambulatory can really crush out some big miles depending on the terrain. But sometimes we like to take it kind of easy. And I know if any of you guys watch my videos, like especially I loved the Pictured Rocks trail. That was such a beautiful trail. And the awesome part was that because it was so flat, we got the ability to we just crushed miles, and we got to hang out on the beach and relax. And you guys saw it was able to take a dip in Lake Superior, which was cold, but it was a lot of fun doing that. And so I think that's one of the big things I like when I'm hiking, is that I like being able to take a break, take my pack off, stop. And in winter you can't do this as much because all the ground is covered in snow. But it's nice to be able to kind of relax like that. No, Fred, she is not a trowel lover. She just kind of looks at me sideways when I talk about trowels, and she said, "This is something that people are really kind of into," and I say, "I seems like it." Oh, sorry, Miss Adam is asking about any out west trips planned this year. Yep, I talked about this briefly earlier, but Utah is in the works. Have her bring an umbrella for extra cover. Maybe she'll feel better. Maybe. That's a good idea, actually. My wife had trouble at first, but loves to hike, so got used to no bathroom. Some campsites at Picture Rocks do have bathrooms, and Bob, there are some beautiful campsites and campgrounds there. It's pretty awesome to just see. Josh is asking, Tim, have you thought about doing a weekly or monthly frequently asked questions video like Darwin on the Trail? Oh, I've thought about it briefly, but I actually like the live stream format better. I mean, I understand why he does the monthly or weekly. No, he does it weekly, doesn't he? The weekly Q&As. It kind of makes sense because you actually can edit, you can take your time, and I feel like you can generate more traffic with those kind of videos, especially you have people who want to find out what questions you're answering. Maybe I won't rule it out in the future, but right now I feel like the live stream kind of takes away the need for a weekly Q&A. I feel like I answer all the questions here, and I like this format a lot. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I really enjoy, I don't know, performing live sounds like such a weird way to say it, but just like the interaction is so much more immediate. Yeah, there are a couple seconds delay, but I would rather watch a live stream Q&A than a kind of canned Q&A. That's just me. My wife's idea of roughing is having to carry the suitcase to the motel by herself. I plan to do a weekly Q&A after I move into a camper. Yeah, I don't think my wife is going to do that either. I need to grow up my beard. Yep. See, a beard doesn't really go well for me. I get stopped at the airport a lot when I grow out a beard, so I don't plan on doing that. Up for 71. My wife says when we were camping, when the room service stops at 10. Let's see. Keep my miles down. Just enjoy a relaxed time. Yeah, I enjoy the same thing too. Let's see. Advantages of using an underquilt versus a sleeping pad in a hammock. I see you use a pad. Thanks, love your videos. Thanks, Adam. I actually did a video kind of like that. If you search camping pad in a hammock, you'll see that video. But the big, to let you know, the big advantage that an underquilt has is it's more comfortable, hands down. I don't think you can be as comfortable with a pad in your hammock as you can an underquilt. Underquilt's gonna be more comfortable. The nice thing I find with the pad in the hammock is that there is more in-person adjustment. So with a pad, you kind of have to get comfortable, get used to it. So for me, it's easy. I sleep on my back. It's not an issue at all. With an underquilt, you have more issues to worry about in terms of, it doesn't always happen every time, but migrating down, you also have to worry about making sure you have things tightened up or cinched up properly. Have to worry about it getting wet. A big advantage for me is that I have the option of going to the ground if I need to. And so with the Xtherm, I've been comfortable on the ground. It's not as comfortable as my hammock by far, but I have the option if I want to. And so going in the shelter, or if there are not enough trees, I can use my hammock as a bivvy just for the bug net and still sleep on the ground. And so that's my big advantage. Type of camera do I use for my on-trail video? That's actually on my list of things to answer, so thanks for asking that, Adventurous Found. But the big thing that I use is my iPhone. So actually every video, there we go. I'm watching two screens at the same time. But every video that you have ever watched on the channel, except for live streams, has been in the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 7. I just update every 2 years, and the camera is phenomenal. It has video optical image stabilization, and so it works really well. It smooths things out by hardware, not by software. And so if you want to get started filming any hiking, I'd say start with your phone. There's no reason why you can't. You can even edit on your phone, and for the large part of this channel, I actually edited on my phone. The only since my Dolly Sods video in October have I started editing on the Mac, the computer that you're seeing right now with the webcam. Other than that, it's all been on the phone. Sweat with a pad. Let's see. Nick is asking, I live in Seattle and want to make the transition to a hammock. Constant rain and altitude concerns me, though. Any suggestions or advice? I wouldn't be concerned about the rain, honestly. If you get a hammock with doors, let's say it's something like the War Bonnet Mini Fly or the War Bonnet Thunderfly or the Hammock Gear kind of Cuban with the doors, anything with doors, once you get that, I honestly would never be concerned about rain again. As long as you have drip lines, that's another big thing in hammocks. Basically, all you have to Google is hammock staying dry in a hammock or hammock camping in the rain, and those videos will pop up, and follow those tips. I wouldn't be concerned about that. Altitude is the concern in terms of you're thinking about trees. Yeah, so you will not find as many trees. We were fortunate enough that what we try to do when we go on our out west trip is we kind of hike high, camp low. And so we always had groves of trees nearby on our 4-pass loop trip. And so it wasn't an issue. 4-pass loop, you can easily hammock camp every night without a problem. Yeah, hammocks are fine in the rain. So yeah, and Nick, you see Nature Calls Backpacking in the chat. Go ahead and give him a subscribe. He is out in the Pacific Northwest, and so he knows exactly what he's talking about with hammock camping in the rain. So yeah, feel free to kind of chat with him as well as follow his channel, because he does lots of amazing DIY stuff too. Yeah, Josh, I thought I would have problems. This is Josh Sanders, not Subaru Josh. See, Josh Sanders, I got to change your name to something now. Now you got to have a Josh nickname. So let me know what you think that nickname's going to be. I use only iPhone, but trying to go to the GoPro 6. That is an option. I thought about having to go to the GoPro in this winter trip because I had problems with my phone dying in the past and very, very cold temperatures. But I actually didn't have an issue this last trip. Let's see. Rick is talking about, I hear a used Mama Jama might be on sale soon. He's saying that because I talked to him about maybe selling my Mama Jama. It's been perfect. It's been fine. No issues, but I like the look of the Thunderfly, and I'm thinking of upgrading my Mama Jama to a Thunderfly. We'll see. A good mic is important, yes, for the kind of those trip videos, especially the videos that I do kind of in here that you see when I'm over that direction. Those are the videos that I definitely use the mic for, so it's not echoey in here. Let's see. I use a small camera bag attached to my truss strap to hold a few things. Is there a bag that works well for the front carry? I think there are two things you can consider. You can consider the ribs pack, which tend to be a little bulky though and kind of heavy. And you can also consider Z-Packs makes a chest rig, or I think it's a multi-pack is what they call it. They kind of use in the front of your pack. What do you do when you aren't hanging? So 3 kids keep me pretty busy. I'm just busy being a dad, busy at work. Usually February and March especially are the busiest times at my job, and so that's the big time for me where I have to do just a lot of stuff sometimes outside of work. Come home and have work done. Let's see. We're going to finish up here in about 5 minutes. Just give you guys a 5-minute warning, just because we're actually coming out close to an hour. Just the chat has been rocking. You guys have been awesome. I always want to tell you, put your last questions in, of course, but you guys have been awesome. I always want to say thank you for watching. I think we've had the channel's had incredible growth in the last month or so. The last 3 videos have been really well received. But I know those guys who are here in the chat are kind of the core audience. I mean, you guys keep coming back every time, and I see you in the comments, and I watch some of you guys' channels, of course, but it's awesome. Thank you for support, just not only watching the videos, but different things like, I mean, buying those silly shirts that I sell, and I get a small chunk of those. Or if you go shopping on Amazon and you buy through the link in the description. Thanks for doing that. Those kind of things help support the channel. Even the super chats that you guys have given on past live streams, all those things go to things like gas in the car, paying Super Josh to drive, permits, parking, all those little things that sometimes it adds up pretty quickly. And the nice thing about backpacking is that overall, it's not the most expensive hobby when it comes to the actual trips, as long as you have the gear. But it's nice to know that a lot of those things are kind of taken care of, and it really helps the channel grow because I can go more places, I can do more things, and I can convince the wife that, hey, it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg to do this because the channel in some ways help pay for it. So thank you guys for doing that. It really is awesome, and I just want to say thank you. Let's see, questions. Galaxy, yeah, everyone uses a phone. Z-Packs makes a great front pack. Crummy video quality is tolerable. Crummy audio means watching something different. Yeah, if the audio is bad, so even right now on the live stream, I don't know if you guys know, let's see, you probably can't see it, but right here there's actually a microphone right here, because the webcam or the Mac standard microphone is awful. It's just awful. So this is what it is. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I think a positive attitude kind of goes a long way just in life in general. There's no reason to get super negative all the time. It just makes things worse. Yes, Super Josh is the group chauffeur, and I think part of the reason is that he loves doing it because he gets to drive a Subaru. One shock. I've been subbed since your Picture the Rocks trip, and that was an awesome trip. I'm always lurking during these chats. Cool. I'll accept lurkers. I mean, there are 62 of you in the chat right now, so not everyone is commenting, which is fine. I'm just glad you guys are watching. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, sometimes I know for a while there I was doing 2 videos a week. I felt like that was too much. I kind of like the routine I have going now with a kind of weekly video and every other week live stream. I just feel like it's a good balance for now. Maybe at some point I'll do a little more. But right now it is what it is. Let's see. We keep coming back because we have no life. And Bob started before he started backpacking videos. Yeah, before I kind of started getting into kind of doing these videos. Adams, will I ever do a through hike, even a small one? I guess yes. We already did a through hike. The Picture the Rocks trail from end to end is a very small through hike. You're talking 40 miles, I believe it is, maybe 40, 41 to 45. I don't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, even a small one we'll do. I considered as well. This year, the plan was to do the John Muir Trail, actually. I know some of you guys who've been watching for a while maybe have noticed I have not talked about that in a while. The reason is because of the more I thought about it, the more I thought about my kids being at the age that they are, I didn't feel comfortable leaving for that period of time and missing kind of that part of their life when they're this young. Maybe when they get older, I don't care as much. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe when they get a little older and I don't know, I feel like at their age right now, you just miss so much so quickly. If I'm gone for even those 3 or 4 days, weeks, 4-day trips, I feel like I miss a lot. And so I'm still not there yet. Maybe someday I will be, and I'll do a longer trip. The JMT, John Muir Trail, is still on my list. I still think about it. I own mile and a half, and I rewatch that thing all the time. Thanks, R. Benning. What kind of training do you do when you're not hiking? 42.5 miles is the Picture Rocks Trail. We used to run a lot more until Subaru Josh got hurt. I have been running for a while. I do a lot of walking. The big thing I'm going to start doing, though, is I've been looking into getting a rowing machine, especially for cold weather like this. I'm trying to find something that's a little bit less impact on my joints. I was really surprised when I twisted my knee really badly in the Laurel Highlands video. You guys remember that or not? I was kind of surprised by how much my knee hurt, kind of just the constant pounding up and down, up and down. So I'm looking at something that's a little less impact. Thought about an elliptical, also thought about a rowing machine. So I'm probably going to go with a rowing machine at some point. Is the kit bag by Hill People Gear too heavy for a backpack and front pack? I don't know that one. Hammer. Let's see. JMT looks amazing. I know JMT. Yep, Super Josh is usually my training partner, and he hasn't been able to kind of do a whole lot. So, but yeah, rowing machine is what my plan is. but I used to run a lot more. You're talking 3 times a week, at least 3 miles each time. I haven't done that for a long time. But I just kind of watch my diet is the big one, and then I walk a lot. So I'm about to head out, guys. Thanks so much for watching. These chats are always rocking, and this live stream was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and you learned a little bit from the chat and from each other. That's one of the best parts of doing these live streams, is that we're able to kind of learn from other people. And so it's not just me here blabbing and talking for about an hour and 3 minutes now is what we're going on to. But you guys have kept me kind of engaged this entire time. And honestly, it hasn't felt like it's been an hour. So thanks for this, guys. Have a good evening and watch for the next video. It's going to drop Monday at 3 p.m. I'm playing with the timing now because it seems like more people are home to watch when I'm able to kind of drop it in the Monday afternoon rather than the Monday morning. And so it's a good one. I enjoyed making it, and hopefully you will enjoy it too. But thanks for watching, guys. Peace.